You're listening to the Food and Fitness Podcast Huddle. In today's mini episode, we reflect on last week's episode and talk about our personal goals. We are your hosts, Jess White,
Jackie Vandertuin,
and Dave Marshall.
So goals are something that we find trending throughout our podcast, whether it be fundraising, business related, or personal. In past episodes, we have shared our personal SMART goals. So let's take some time to discuss our progress. So Dave, I'm going to start with you. Can you share what your SMART goal was and then where you are with it today?
So our goal, so my wife and I, we wanted to walk 1,000 kilometers for the year. So we're at 1322 and a half as of Sunday. So that's good. So that's super exciting. And we're very happy for that. We were going to do 15, but I think we're going to do 1750. We'll see what happens. Do as many as we can. Then that'll set a baseline for next year, and then the next year after that, and see if we can continue to improve. So we're super excited about that. We now planned a vacation in September to go and do more hiking. So everything just seems to be revolving around it recently, which is really good, and something we're both kind of thrilled about. And that's what people know of us now. People are like, "Oh yeah, I saw that you guys went hiking here. How was it?" Or I found this Bruce Trail book from the 18th edition, and now they're on the 30th. They're like, "Here," and I was like, "Oh, thanks." So it's exciting now that that's what we're known as. We used to be known as the food guy, and now I'm known as the hiking guy too.
That's awesome. So I'm just curious. Do you guys plan your weeks out in advance so that you know which days you're going to go hiking, or is it just like fly by the seat of your pants kind of thing? Like if it's nice out, you'll go out.
So we'll do small walks between work and dinner, or with the way that the weather has been this last week was really hot. We would just go after dinner and just try and get in as a couple K here or there. So sometimes up to 5, that's how these things add up, right? But then on our weekends off, I'm usually off Friday, and then we're off, or I'm off every other Friday. We have Saturday, Sunday off. So we'll try either 1 to do a big hike or 2 medium hikes on that weekend. And then the weekend that I work the Saturday, the Sunday we'll usually go for a larger one as well.
So Dave, I have questions for you. So SMART goals, so specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. You are very specific. Mm-hmm. You measure it. How do you measure your distance traveled?
So we use an app called Strava. So basically what you do is you just turn it on and it tracks with GPS. So it's kind of nice when we're in remote places and you don't have cell signal, it can still track you. Some people are scared about being tracked all the time. But for us, it's nice because you can map it out. Kind of where you were when you saw this kind of cool thing. Maybe you hung around there. So they also shows you your elevation and your speed. So yes, kilometers are kind of important, but it's not like we walked 1,000 kilometers flat ground. We did a lot of elevation. So that's something that maybe a lot of people don't take into account when they're just asking for total numbers.
And it sounds like it was attainable because you actually exceeded your goal.
Yes.
And when you started, did you think that this was a realistic goal?
No. I 100% did not think that we were going to be able to do 1,000 kilometers by the end of the year.
In hindsight, obviously you can. So what does that tell you about achieving this goal or achieving goals in the future? What do you think?
For me, doesn't matter what goal it is. If I'm planning on eating a whole cake, you have to eat it like a slice at a time kind of thing, right? And that's, for me, how I achieve my goals is I take them a little bit at a time, a little chunk here and there. So that's why those 5 kilometers between dinner and work, those have added up to let us achieve where we are. And it's not like we were going to just do 1,000 kilometers start to finish. That would be near impossible. There are some bizarre people who've done the whole entire Bruce Trail in very small amounts of time. I think they're crazy, or extreme athletes, but there's no way I could ever do that. So for me, taking a little bite out of it here and there every time, that's what made it obtainable and realistic. And we were able to do it in a short amount of time.
And was it something that you were able to fit into your life?
Yes, because if we just started walking and hiking this year, probably not, because I think it would seem too much, and feeling like you'd always have to do like, oh, we'd have to break it down into 110 kilometer hikes or something like that. But because we were doing this we're 2021 now, 2020 and 2019, we were already walking and hiking before. It made it easier to fit into our lives, and because we were doing smaller bits, you could fit it in here and there wherever you wanted to. And we'd plan weekends away, or be like, hey, we're gonna drive an hour north and do this, or we want to do the different section of the trail, so we would park 2 cars, so one at the top, one at the bottom of the section we wanted to do, and walk down. So
I love the fact that you keep saying we, the pronoun we, meaning your wife.
Yeah.
Is that better, worse, or it doesn't make a difference that Joe joined you on this journey?
I don't think I could do it without her. A lot of the time, like, people are like, oh, that's so romantic, you guys go walking and hand in hand and talking. I'm like, no. Like, sometimes, like, we won't talk for 10 kilometers just because maybe the trail's difficult. A lot of times we go because we've had a difficult week and we just kind of needed to decompress. It's nice to know that that person is there, but we're not having 10 kilometers worth of conversation. And we make fun of each other openly, like on hikes. So that kind of helps it as well. But we're there for support, like moral and stuff. We both bring bags and for my diabetes supplies, and then lots of water supplies. So, we pack ahead of time, make sure that we have lunches. It's something we do together.
And I have one more question for you.
Sure.
Yes. What's the benefit of doing this? What benefits have you seen, I should say?
So I've been able to do kilometers better, which I think is huge. I mean, it's not such a struggle to walk a kilometer anymore. Or if I see a hill up ahead, I'm just like, yeah, okay, I think we can do this. There has been some weight loss, which I'll take. Better control over my blood glucose levels for my diabetes, so less fluctuation and stuff. So that was actually probably maybe the most difficult part, was trying to figure out how to eat, figure out my insulin levels between and before every hike. So that was the hardest, most difficult part, because sometimes your blood sugar would shoot sky high and my legs would be seizing up because they're cramping, because my blood is so thick with sugar. And that was maybe one of the worst hikes we've ever done. Like, my blood sugar, you're supposed to be between 4 and 7, crash course in diabetes. You're supposed to be between 4 and 7. And I was at like 16 when we were hiking. And I'm thankful for my glucose monitor, because you can always, every 2 minutes, it tells me what my blood sugar is. So yeah, I took a little bit of insulin, and then it started to come down, and I started walking faster and better as my blood sugar was dropping. And sometimes if I'm tripping on stuff that I shouldn't be tripping on, or maybe I'm walking further ahead than Joe is, or from Joe, she's like, check your blood sugar. And usually it's like on its way down. So those are kind of little tidbits we can find out as well.
Mm. And what about cons?
Cons, I have like 4 pairs of shoes now. That's weird. Like, that's bizarre. I would spend money on things I didn't think I would ever spend money on. Stupid injuries, like my foot has been bothering me since last week when we went hiking. So that's kind of annoying. But other than that, I mean, I wouldn't really say there's too much to be cons on. I usually like to look at the more positive things anyways.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Jess, how about you?
So I don't really know where even to start, because this feels like a whole other lifetime ago. So back when we first started talking about SMART goals, I had never set a SMART goal before. So I was also going through a lot of health issues. So I decided to make a nutrition dietary change that I felt at the time was kind of required to just get some of my, the triggers that I was getting from food just kind of under control and figured out. So my SMART goal way back when was to get, and I actually don't even remember, I should have written it down what, like word for word what it was, but it was something along the lines of I'm going to write down, oh guys, do you even remember?
I think he was trying to figure out your trigger foods.
Yeah.
It was definitely trying to figure my trigger foods out. And I think it was by trial and error writing. And I was going to do that by writing down what I was eating every day, like in a food diary. And if there was any recipes that I really enjoyed, I'd also write them down. And I was planning on doing that, I think within a 3-month time period is what I said. So it was definitely trial and error. I'm really glad I did it. I don't know if it was the best SMART goal per se, but I am glad that I stuck to it and I did it for the 3 months because I really did figure out what my trigger foods were. But it was also with the help of like a doctor, a naturopath, and a dietitian. So definitely would not recommend anyone try to figure out all of these issues without the help of your doctor. But I am glad I did it. I figured out what my triggers were. At the end of the day, it comes down to I've been very honest with everyone during this podcast, so I'm just going to share what I found is it's anything with gluten, anything with lactose, and anything with red meat. So that's a lot of things. So I'm really glad that I stuck to writing down the different recipes because that's helped me figure out different things to try. And it's in the whole spectrum of nutrition, I've really opened up my eyes and stepped outside of the box in a lot of things because I definitely used to be like a meat and potatoes kind of person. So I've tried a lot. And then that was, I think, let's say the end of April was the end of that 3 months. Then I decided over the summer that I was going to also take some time to focus on reducing some of the stress in my life. And I was planning on spending at least 30 minutes every day for 1 month doing something that reduced my stress, whether it be go for a bike ride or a walk or do yoga or meditate. And I was going to write that down in my book just so I can kind of keep track of what I did and what days. And I did that, and I've continued to do that over the course of this summer. And it has also helped. So I'm kind of a lot of the symptoms that I was having before I started these 2 SMART goals have really reduced. So I think it's definitely nutrition and stress has changed a lot. We'll see what happens when school goes back. But for now, everything is nice. I'll leave it like that. It's a lot better.
Are you okay if I ask you some questions?
Yes, for sure.
And so I love the fact that Dave mentioned the pronoun we and that he had support. How about you? Like where did your family, your husband and your little guy, Bryce, fit into this as well? Because food is hard when you've got family involved.
Food is definitely hard. There was some days where I felt like I was making 3 different meals for 3 different people. But my family definitely supports me trying to figure out what is going on. But there's some things that, because there was a lot that I had to take out of my diet in the beginning when I was trying to figure out what was causing issues. It was very restrictive. And it's not fair to make a 5-year-old at the time and my husband not eat, watermelon and some of the simple joys in life. So when I was going through that process, they didn't exactly follow the same meals that I do, but they were fully supportive in me going down the road. And when it comes to support, I am glad that I had the dietitian because she got it. And she was kind of an ear for support there.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And so with regards to making the goal, what have you learned about goal making?
I think that I need to be more specific in the future. Because when I started, it was all like dream and fantasy land. I'm like, I'm going to figure out all my triggers in 3 months. But reality, some people never figure out what is causing them issues, or, they can figure it out, but they just can't cut it out from their diet, or there's so many ifs and buts. So I definitely wasn't realistic either. I did it and I somehow stuck through it, but maybe I got a little lucky. Who knows? Maybe it is because I cut everything out and I was very strict with what I was eating. And I think that out of anything, the food diary really helped because I could refer to that. And, some days it was like I felt like I couldn't eat anything. So I looked at the diary and I was like, oh, but I can eat this. So that was really helpful.
So you had to put some extra work in.
Yes.
Like it wasn't just to think I ate potatoes, not sure. Like you actually had to document everything down.
Everything.
Yeah. How difficult was that?
At the first couple days, I struggled because I would do it at the end of the day and try to remember everything that I ate at the beginning of the day. But as time went on, I just kind of I have it here, my little book. I carried my little book with me everywhere. And it was just, I felt like at the time I really needed it because I would write down what I was eating. And then if I had any symptoms that would creep up, I would write that down with the time, because I really needed to figure out if it was something I ate that was causing me issues, how long did it take for those issues to happen? Like, then I could figure out what foods were actually causing the problems. So I think I figured it out as I went, that you do need to just keep it with you, write down everything. And it does seem a little over the top, but it was only the 2-3 months that I did that. So in the long run, it helped me figure out what I can and can't eat. I'm really glad I did it.
That's awesome.
I know that I've been doing like some food elimination diets over the last couple of weeks as well. It's like kind of similar to yours. And as a diabetic, I was always reading the nutritional facts that came with everything. So like, calories, carbohydrates, fibers, the most important thing I was looking at. But now I've learned a lot about what is or isn't in some foods. And that really opened my eyes. Did you kind of find that as well? You're like, something that you think that you should be fine eating, and you're like, oh no, this has like, so like, for me it's corn. My body, apparently we're not friends at all. But I would look at things and I'd be like, I would never think that corn would be in here, or corn starch, or corn syrup, or anything like that.
Wheat. So wheat is one thing that I just, my body will not digest it, and it is in almost everything.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed is if you look at the ingredients, there's some things, and you'll really notice it when you're shopping at certain stores, they'll have a large like gluten-free sticker on it. So that doesn't have any wheat in it. But if you look at the ingredient, and it's also priced like 3 times the amount of the other things that are right beside it that aren't gluten-free, that don't have the huge gluten-free sticker. Oreos, I'm talking about you. And then there's other items that if you're looking at the ingredients, it doesn't say any mention of gluten-free, and it has a very small gluten-free or wheat-free just right underneath the ingredients. So the ingredients is one thing that I really focused on when I was going through this process, but not so much nutrition facts for me. It was more the ingredients, and I tried to find things that had real ingredients that I could pronounce. No dyes or anything like that either, just like solid, if you were to make them at home, these are the things that you would put in them, kind of thing.
For me, it was also like the hidden names of something, like, it says wheat, but if you call it something else, it's still wheat, but it doesn't say, it's not spelled with the same letters, right? And those are always the difficult things for me to find out.
Yes.
Yeah. And especially as a diabetic, people will be like, oh, it's no sugar added, you can have it. I'm like, oh, it's not the same as sugar free for me.
Yeah. Really have to look at that back label just to see things that I never did before. I would just open up that pack of Oreos and demolish it. But now I have to actually realize like, oh, okay, I'll just make my own cookies and they will taste even better. But yeah, it's something that I'm definitely more aware of now.
So as we wrap this up, I think, Jackie, you're the next one to go. And I know that you had a SMART goal that you wanted to accomplish. And I think that this is a very important conversation to have, especially with our audience. Sometimes goals aren't achieved, and there's no shame in that whatsoever. So, Jackie, what was your goal and what happened?
Yeah, so my goal was to run 50K again. So I did it last year, and I was just going to do it again September. I even had the date, September the 11th. I had wanted to go. So when I started this, I was hoping to run a race in Michigan. And my husband ran it, and it was so much fun that I wanted him to experience crewing. And as things were rolling out, I was like, I'm not going to Michigan. I don't feel that it's safe. Vaccination rates were not sure. We had only been single vaccinated at the time. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to do a virtual run. And I struggled doing a virtual. I thought, oh man, I don't want to spend 50 kilometers by myself again. I really enjoyed it the first time, and I had plans. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to, the last time I reflected each year of my life, what I was doing. I was like, okay, this time I'm going to reflect where I'm going to be. So when I'm like 51 to 100, each kilometer that went by, and I tried doing it, and it was really hard to forecast where I was. So I didn't have kind of a mental plan on how to do this. Because running 50 kilometers is not just physical, it's mainly mental. And then I got injured. And that was my fear starting off, is I was going to be injured because as I get older, I'm more injury prone. And I pushed through and I pushed through and I pushed through. And I just couldn't, because I wasn't enjoying it anymore. It was painful. Like I'd get up the next day and I had difficulty walking because my Achilles was so sore. And then my hips started to become sore. And so I had a conversation with myself and said, really, this isn't realistic. And on top of that, my husband also got really injured. And what does he have to do with this? Because like you, Dave, when he would go out for a run, I would go out for a run. We wouldn't run the same pace. He would go his trail, I would go my trail. But it was the fact that we were out there together. And I had a little conversation with myself, and it was actually a former guest, Tracy Stewart. She kept running through my head. And, she said, if there's no joy, then why do it? And I thought, there's no joy in this for me right now, because I'm pushing into something that I'm doing it because I said I was going to do it. I told a whole bunch of people I was going to do it, and that's why I'm doing it. And I just said, it's not healthy for me. And I want to get back to being in joy again. So luckily I have a great group of friends. We did a lot of mountain biking this summer, and I loved it. And so, yes, I'm still running, but I'm not running, the 15, 16, 17, 18 kilometers that I was. I just do 6, and I say only, but I shouldn't say that. I'm doing 6, 7, 8, 9 kilometers, and I'm really enjoying it. And I do it, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, I run with a group, and then I'll throw another day in there as well. I mountain bike on Fridays and Sundays with my friends. And exercise to me is becoming more joyful again. And I was losing that. I was losing the joy. And for me, I was really disappointed with myself that I wasn't able to accomplish this goal. So I ordered, and I can't see myself on the screen, but I ordered a little medal thing, and I put my medals up, and I'm like, and it says, she believed she could, so she did. And I have done it, and those are some of the medals. They're not all, because I threw some of them out, but I've demonstrated to myself I have done it before. And that's there to remind me that I have done it, but I want the joy to be number one. And so it's been a really good learning lesson, I think, for our listeners as well, is sometimes we set goals, but sometimes there are things that happen. Life happens, and that's okay. I still intend to do another 50 next year in person at an actual race, because I think for me that is critical. And so my hope is that life opens up in the next year, September, I guess it'll be 12th. I'm going to be in Michigan doing a 50K. And if I don't, it's okay. Yeah, that's my story.
I've watched some stories and stuff where you talk about athletes, and when they retire is sometimes when they find the most joy in their sport, because they're not competing anymore. They're not doing it for someone else. They're doing it for themselves. And it sounds like maybe that's what you found this year, which is awesome. But what's something that you have learned by not accomplishing your goal?
That it's okay, and failure in my life has never been an option. I very, very rarely will I look back and say that I failed in something. I started doing a PhD, and I didn't even fail at that. I just stopped doing it for numerous reasons. I don't sit well with failure. And this, to me, at first I said, oh, I failed, but I really didn't. I learned something more about myself, and I took back the joy. So is that failure? No, that's actually growth. And so I think for me, learning to enjoy and appreciate, and going back to, I trail run. And why do I trail run? I trail run because I love the beauty. But sometimes, and I start off every run and I say, you know what, if I hike it, that's okay. That's okay if I hike it, the whole thing. I never do, but I give myself permission to do that. Yes, I do wear a watch, and I try not to compete with myself anymore. I try not to shave time off. Like in Strava, if you do segments, it'll place you in your PR, and I don't pay attention to that anymore because it doesn't matter. And when I do start thinking about that, I have to push it back and say, what if I don't get a PR today? It's okay. Like, I'm not fast anyways, but it's relative to me. And I just want to enjoy it again. And that's what I've taken back.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, if anything, it's important to be kind for yourself, know your boundaries, play within them. And I think that all three of us have time that we can start to think about what our next goal is and what's going to drive us in the next little bit. But until next time,
we'll talk food.
We'll talk fitness.
And we'll do it together.
Thank you for watching and listening to this week's episode of the Food and Fitness Podcast. Join us next week when we sit down and talk to local naturopathic doctor Danielle Marshall-Don about naturopathic medicine.